Terry, thanks for joining me today.
It's great to be here, Noor.
I want to ask about all things acceptable ads. Let's start from the top. How do you define what an acceptable ad is?
Okay, the $1 million question. So, in terms of acceptability, I think about it as a spectrum. And I like to start off with the ads that are not acceptable, right? The disruptive ads, the annoying ads, the ads that everyone knows they don't like them. They're the ads that are a huge pop-up with an X that you can't click to close. The kind of ads that when you're in the office and you open a page, they autoplay and blast video. Those are the kind of disruptive, annoying ads that we know to not be acceptable. On the other side of the spectrum, you've got ads that aren't just tolerable, but that they're actually desirable. So think about the Super Bowl. Super Bowl ads. People tune in to the Super Bowl just to watch ads. I met someone yesterday, and we are in cons, so there's a bit of a bias there. But he said that he didn't go to the games. He'd been invited to the Super Bowl, but he preferred to watch them on TV so he could see the ads. So there obviously is a level of advertising that people not just tolerate, but want to see. And the work that we do is trying to figure out where that line lies. What we found is that a lot of times it depends on context. It depends on things like the creativity of the ad, and it depends on what the user's trying to do. So even the best Super Bowl ad, if you're at the airport and you're trying to rebook a flight that just got canceled, you're not interested in seeing it in that particular moment on your phone. You want to get to do what you're doing. So the concept of acceptability really depends on a bunch of factors, but mostly it stems from what the user wants, what the user's trying to do, and the ability to deliver that in that moment. One of the most important things for the Acceptable Ads Committee is the independence of the committee as a nonprofit organization. And so a lot of the people that were previously involved had some sort of stake in the industry. They were involved in ad filtering in some way, including the prior president as well. And so in order to move the AAC to not that it hasn't been independent, but to really alleviate any perception of non-independence, I think it was important to recruit an independent president, as well as a lot of the committee members now don't necessarily have stakes in ad filtering, but they are very interested in user experience. They are interested in digital media, and they are interested in the rights of users.
Then you have a committee. It's not just you. You've got a team. Who decides? How do you recruit for the Acceptable Ads Committee?
The who really represents the how and how the committee works. So if you look at the digital media industry as a whole, you've got publishers who are creating the content that users want to see. They're creating the news and the viral videos and all the other stuff that we want to consume. You've got advertisers that want to reach users, and they're the ones that will pay publishers and fund a lot of that content creation. You've got intermediaries like agencies and ad tech companies that help facilitate that technologically. The committee is composed of stakeholders that represent each of those industry groups. So we have members that are publishers, advertisers, ad tech companies, of course, users, and each of those stakeholder groups have a representative. Those representatives sit at the table, and they are part of the process of how decisions get made. And so I think this is the important part, because a lot of people don't understand this. Our committee representatives don't actually get to decide what is an acceptable ad. They get to determine the process by which we go about determining what constitutes an acceptable ad. And we've got great committee members who are volunteering their time to participate because they care deeply about the user experience. But at the end of the day, it's always the user that determines what makes an ad acceptable.
You said you take it to the users. Can you just expand on that? When something is being brought to users, what does that process look like so you can vet and assess the viability?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Ad refresh was a recent study that we did on the ad refresh format. So these are ads that a publisher puts on a page that refresh after either a period of time or after a user-initiated action. It came to us from our publishing group. So some of the members in the publishing group wanted us to take a look at this particular type of ad unit because they thought it would be important, especially because publishers were under pressures with the deprecation of cookies and whatnot. So we brought it to our committee. There was a round of debate as to what that should look like, and we decided to proceed with it. We commissioned research, which recruited 10,000 users across the world, 10 different countries, different demographics, indicative of the types of users that are using the internet in each country. And we created mock-ups of different environments. So we had a gaming environment with a single page where ads were refreshing on that page. And we had a long-form news article, again, where ads were refreshing on the page at different intervals based on different user interactions. And we tested users. So we actually had them perform in this environment, either play the game or read the news article, and then give us their feedback. Did they like this experience? Did they hate that? And then we rank these. And we've got a certain baseline, and all of our research is publicly available, so you can actually take a look at what that looks like. But that informed the standard as to how we felt about ad refresh.
I want to ask you also about the acceptable ad standard. What is it, and what are some misconceptions about it as well?
The standard itself is a set of rules as to what is permissible or what is deemed to be acceptable by the committee as far as digital advertising is concerned. The implication of the standard is that there are ad blockers, there are browsers that will opt in to using the acceptable ads standard. And if a user decides that they want to see acceptable ads, they will see ads that comply with that standard. The biggest misconception, I think, as far as both the standard and acceptable ads committee is that we are anti-advertising. And really that couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is that, again, having been in the industry, there was a lot of pushback as far as ad blocking is concerned. A lot of people in the industry felt like it was impeding their ability to conduct their business. So the idea that, the acceptable ads is somehow anti-advertising couldn't be further from the truth. We are actually very much pro-sustainable advertising, very much pro-open web.
How do you meet the balance between trying to fulfill the interests and needs of advertisers and publishers while simultaneously recognizing the needs of users and just the internet using public?
Yeah, so that's built into our DNA. The way that the acceptable ads committee has been structured is such that just happens naturally. So it's two things. It's our structure and our process. So in terms of structure, I talked about it earlier, but the fact that we have user representation alongside publisher representation and advertiser representation means that whenever we're making any sort of decision, those voices are always at the table. They're at the table at the initial planning stage. They're at the decision-making stage. We're constantly hearing in everything that we do from the publisher, the advertiser, and the user. So our structure has a big role in that. The second part is our process. So I talked about the process of what that research looks like. Any decision that we make is going to be data-driven. To quote Jay-Z, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. All our decisions are based on what the data tells us. So while our representatives will help guide the questions being asked, it's the users and what they tell us during that research phase that decides what decisions are being made. So we're able to balance it by a combination of having the right people at the table and then also just, making sure that we're very rigorous and data-driven in our decision-making.
Now, I know you said earlier, Terry, that you don't hate ads and the AAC doesn't hate ads, but there are people out there who do hate ads and use the internet. And that has fueled, I'd say, the rise of ad blocking technologies that are out there. How do you combat that, or how do you deal with the fact that there has been this rise?
Yeah, I think that when you see the rise of those nuclear ad blockers that block everything, it's indicative of the problems in the industry, right? People have a choice. They have a choice to see the ad experience. They have the choice to use a nuclear ad blocker, and they have the ability to use something in between that, complies with acceptable ad standard. We're not so concerned about the nuclear option. We're more concerned about setting a precedent for the industry in terms of how it can move forward, because those nuclear ad blocking options are only possible because people don't feel like they have another option. Right. So if the industry is focused on the user experience, giving users the kind of user experience that, we talked about, not just tolerable, but desirable, there won't be an issue with ad blocking.
I'll land the plane on a question about what you're excited about for the future, or what do you think is the most important and interesting work that you are focused on for 2025?
Yeah. Privacy, I think, is going to be super important for the Acceptable Ads Committee and for digital media overall, because it's important to users. And the Acceptable Ads Committee, we're in a pretty unique situation because we have direct user representation, but we also speak for stakeholders. A lot of industry groups, they speak for industry, obviously. And so they're making decisions that benefit industry, but a lot of times the needs of the user is not even being considered. On the flip side, you got regulators who are speaking for their constituents, but they don't necessarily have the technological experience or understanding of how their decisions might impact different industry. And so the AAC is pretty unique in that we can speak for both. We have the ability to speak for users. We also have the ability to speak for industry at the same time. And trying to find a balance is the most important thing. It isn't a clear-cut issue where, unfettered access to data is a good or a bad thing, or, no data usage is ideal. There is going to be some sort of medium required. And I think the work that we're going to be able to do will shed some light on that and hopefully help guide the industry to a better way.
It's great to hear about all the important work that you're doing at the AAC and leading the charge for acceptable ads. Thanks for the time, Terry.
Thanks, Noor. I appreciate it.